Welcome to the Autonomic Healing Podcast. I'm Tom Pells.
And I'm Ruth Lawrenson. We'll be unpacking what it looks like to activate your brain to holistically manage stress and trauma that bring healing to the mind, body, and spirit.
Being free to live authentically as humans.
Thank you for joining us. Let's get this conversation started. So, Tom, we're going to talk about generosity, giving generously today. It's part of our ABCs to thriving.
Yep.
And it's really important, I think, to remember why we're doing this series. This is about the movement from simply surviving life, which a lot of people do, to this idea and this possibility that we can actually thrive in something. And so we're going through the alphabet, which is super fun.
Yeah.
We started with, do you want to start us off? Maybe give us an overview and then, but let's land today with this giving generously.
Yep. Accept, the A is accept adversity. And adversity is just that. Something bad has happened, some obstacle, some difficulty, some challenge, some catastrophe even.
Mm-hmm. Which sounds familiar.
Yes.
For most of us.
Oh, and whether this is on an individual basis or a global scale, there's adversity. And thriving accepts adversity. And it's not about just surviving the adverse condition. It's about thriving. And we can when we accept it. Then believe in beneficence. And beneficence is what's beneficial. Mm-hmm. And believing in that and focusing on that, having that as a motivation. If we are in a state of adversity and we accept that adversity, then we can believe in what can be beneficial that can come from this. Then create contentment. Yes, I'm in an adverse circumstance, but it doesn't mean I can't be content. We can create contentment. Mm-hmm. And the D is defer to loving, because love conquers all. Energize empathy, because a natural expression of love, which is about contentment, focuses on what is beneficial, acknowledges what is detrimental, except adversity, but isn't focused on the adversity. It's focusing on what is beneficial. That supports contentment. And then we can defer to loving, and then energize empathy. And we then can forgive fearlessly.
Which was our last episode.
Yes, and if we are forgiving something, it's because there has been some offense, which might be a part of the adversity. Mm-hmm. Going back to all that. Mm-hmm. And if we are forgiving fearlessly, as we talked about in our last episode, the next in the ABCs naturally seems to me to be to give generously.
Yeah.
A survival mentality, especially where there has been offense, where there is adversity, and whether that offense is you've done something to me or we've all done something to each other on a planetary scale or on a national scale, we can give then in response generously if we are thriving and we have that thriving mentality. Something is taken, something is expected, something has been transferred from me to you. So to give is literally transferring something that is mine to someone else.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting, I just want to make this point, because in the Forgive Fearlessly, and I think this is just such a great segue, this episode, because actually in the heart that we touched on in the last episode, and if you haven't listened to it, listen to it. But we were talking about how so much of the time people think that to forgive is to let go of something, whereas it means to give something.
Yes.
To like forgive. And
Yes.
so in response to a debt, really.
Yep.
But this is kind of it's bridging it and taking it another step. This isn't just about giving in response to a debt. This is about giving generously. This is about living in a way where we're not just responding to harm and then forgiving, but actually it's living in a way where we're giving generously in our day-to-day. So that's kind of what we're going to... So I love the fact that those two are really joined, aren't they? There's like this
it's all a piece of this whole cloth. And fearlessly, remember how we talked in the last episode about how much forgiveness is tied to fear and threat to well-being, the sympathetic nervous system, flight or fight. Something has harmed me, something has threatened me, and I can forgive fearlessly, and because of the forgiving fearlessly, I'm in a position now to give generously. Give is to transfer ownership from one person to another.
And I think it's interesting. We're going to get into kind of what generosity is and what and define a little bit of, well, what are we talking about with giving? It's not just money. Obviously, it's like all sorts of things. But I think what you just said was really interesting, because the forgiveness was attached to this fear, and we can't actually forgive if there's fear present.
Right.
So we need to get rid of the fear, which is the fearlessly. But also to give generously is attached to kindness. This is something you brought up earlier.
Yes.
And so the motivation, there needs to be something present in giving generously, just as much as there, we've got to get rid of the fear to forgive well, right?
Yep.
There's this kind of core, I mean, what would you describe it as? Kindness.
Yes.
Core motivation.
Yes,
really.
That's the motivation for generosity, is kindness. So to give is to transfer ownership. Something is mine, it becomes someone else's. That's give. The reason I put it as give generously is because generous is above and beyond what is expected or required. Expected or required. If you are simply giving, transferring from me to someone else, what is expected or required, it's not generosity. That has nothing to do with generous. It only is generous when it is above and beyond what is expected or required. Does that follow? So with the give generously, what's the motivation to go above and beyond? It's kindness. You see need. You see some benefit that this would be to someone, and you transfer what was yours to them out of that sense of kindness.
Yeah. Absolutely makes sense. So what we're saying is it's not just about, and I think one of the responses, one of the things that we need to tackle, Tom, is that, we can see a lot of people giving, like famous people who have loads of money. They can give a lot of money to a charity or a cause and all the rest of it. But we've got to, and maybe that is...
And what is the motivation?
Yeah, maybe that is kindness and that is who they are. Or maybe it's a tax write-off.
Or maybe it's a promo.
A marketing
Look at me, how wonderful
I think
I am.
The point is actually the motivation and the act of doing something that you don't really need to... Like, you're not just meeting standards here. You're not meeting expectations. You're doing something... You're going above and beyond what is needed, and that is the driving factor is kindness. And whether that is, letting someone stay at your house for 2 weeks because there's been a natural disaster, or whether it's your day, you had a day planned and you had, some nice things to do, but then a friend came and they were in crisis and you gave up all of your stuff that they didn't even know that you were doing, and you just sat with them for the day.
You transferred something from you to someone else.
Yeah.
That's to give. And to do it generously is to go above and beyond what is required or expected. And the Dalai Lama said, if you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want to be happy, practice compassion. Because kindness, compassion, responding to need, and transferring something that is yours to someone else is generosity. Being generous is that showing someone that you care, that you have compassion for them, that their need matters to you above and beyond what is expected or required. We just got through the Christmas season. Scrooge, the epitome before his transformation into being a generous person. Scrooge was all about surviving, and he was going to make sure he survived no matter what, and taking from others, and the antithesis of generosity. And then that epiphany of living in the present and community and being a part of it, not isolated and surviving anymore, but being a part of community and the spirit of Christmas present and all of that. And if anyone knew how to celebrate the spirit of Christmas, it was Scrooge. And Tiny Tim did not die. And because of his generosity, he gave above and beyond what was required. My point is this, that generosity is that it's motivated by kindness, but there is an essential element that I think qualifies it as generosity where something else does not. And that is that it is cryptic, that it is hidden. Here, people can be generous because, look at me, what a great person I am, or don't you think well of me? In other words, the generosity isn't generosity. It's just giving. Yes, it's above and beyond, but it's not out of kindness. It's out of some other motivation. And then it's not generosity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. So there's a lot,
It's just a lot of giving.
So there's a few different things here. So number one, it's like, if you're just kind of doing stuff, giving in a way that's just meeting kind of requirements, like, I'm giving my children clothes to wear to school. No, that's not generosity. That is like what is required for a parent.
And what's expected.
What's expected. So I think so the breadth of giving really widens and broadens and expands when we fall into generosity. It's almost like a life force. It's not contained, right? It's not just this like A plus B equals C. It's this like, oh my gosh, this thing can go wide. I'm curious as well, Tom, about, and this just thought came to me about in scripture, it talks about a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. And I wonder whether there's something in that, which is the breadth of like, actually this thing's supposed to go wild, right? This is like not supposed to be contained. This is like supposed to span generations.
The whole point of it is going above and beyond what is expected or required, motivated by kindness.
And so this
is doing good.
So then the second point is kindness, because actually maybe you can go above and beyond, but actually if it's not motivated by kindness, if it's about self
If it's out of any other motivation,
anything else
it is not generosity.
It's not generosity. So that's
Yes.
number 2. But then this other thing that you're talking about, which I think is fascinating and so important for us, is this hidden nature of generosity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, like you say, cryptic of, oh, this isn't supposed to be seen necessarily straight away. It's certainly not supposed to be promoted.
No.
And so I think that that's interesting, because I think a lot of the generosity that we see in the world today is promoted. And so actually it's probably
It's
not
not generosity. No, it's not. Call it something else, but it's not generosity. Just as the Dalai Lama said, if you want others to be happy, practice compassion.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be happy, practice compassion. Because kindness, compassion, is the motivation for generosity. Or as John Wesley once put it, do all the good. What is beneficial? Do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as ever you can. That's a life of generosity. And when we give generously, we are parting with something that is ours, transferring it to someone else, but it's out of that spirit of generosity and kindness to respond to the need. And do you see how then this relates directly to survival or thriving?
Yeah.
Because someone may be in a position where they're not, whether they survive or not depends on your thriving. And if you are in a mentality of surviving,
then you're not going to be.
I don't want to part with what's mine. I can't part with what's mine. And this is where those core issues of feeling insecure and inadequate. If we are in a survival frame of mind, we feel insecure and incapable or inadequate. And we feel powerless to do anything about it. And we just want to survive. And then it's a control issue, and others and situations and circumstances has the control and I don't, and then my self-image and self-esteem suffer. Flip that on its head and approach it from a response out of need, responding to someone in need. Their need elicits a sense of compassion and kindness. I'm now in a thriving mentality, a thrival mentality. And I feel secure and capable, not only because I can and choose to part with what is mine to you out of kindness and generosity, but because I feel secure and capable to do that. And by doing it, I reinforce my sense of my own security and capability. By giving generously, I am reinforcing my sense of I'm secure, I am capable.
And I think as well, I mean, it goes so against selfishness, doesn't it? This whole thing, because
it's the antithesis.
Because actually, really, the generosity is that you are losing something because you see the person in front of you as very valuable. There's something about valuing the human life in front of you that you think they are important enough for me to lose whatever it is, the time, the money, whatever it can be.
Yes, a person's well-being matters. You're a person, that other person is a person, but I'm a person too. I'm going to create another word, and I'm pretty sure. I thought thrival was not a word. It turns out it actually is, just not terribly well known. But I'm going to create a word that I'm pretty sure doesn't exist. And that's not, and you mentioned, selflessness. It is not selflessness. Here's my word, self-plusness. It is my well-being and your well-being, and I want us both to thrive.
Oh, I love that.
Self-plusness. It's self plus other.
Yeah.
It's
And
selflessness.
but that's where I was going with that, because it starts off with this, like, you know, you're not in, I mean, I think the core issues are so important there. You're not in this insecure place. You're not in a poverty mentality. You're in a place where you're like, oh, I can see this person and they're valuable. And that's why I think it's so powerful, you know, when someone stops for someone who's living on the streets, because it's like, okay, they live on the streets. They are a human being, and I'm going to put value on who they are, you know, like that. It doesn't matter.
And I am too.
Yeah, and
so
I am too.
I'm going to do to you what I would
expect
want you to do for me, not
but then
because
what
it's expected
happens, I think,
or required, but because I can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think what happens is that when you act in that way, one of the first things, like I'm thinking through some of the times where, you know, some of my hidden moments, which I'm not going to share because otherwise they wouldn't be hidden anymore.
Exactly.
But I'm thinking through some of those times, and one of the first things that happens when you respond in that way is this sense of well-being that comes, like the good feeling that associates itself with that act of generosity. And it isn't a pride thing. It isn't like, oh, look at who I am.
It's the antithesis of it.
I think there's something about knowing that, oh, I have goodness in me. And knowing that there's goodness in me is an incredibly, I don't know what the word is, Tom, but it's self-valuing. So you've kind of given value across, right? In response to a need. But immediately when you do it, there's this value that's been given back to you because you're like, actually, deep down, I know that there's goodness in me and I can do that. And that feels great to do that.
Yes, and it's more than just goodness. It's integrity. Virtue. Jesus said, take care not to perform your acts of integrity, of goodness, of fair and equitable dealing and generosity. But that word, dikaiosune, also referred to the giving of alms, generosity. Integrity, virtue, fair dealing, justice, is also the same word that's applied to generosity.
Wow. Huh.
As I give generously and express that motivation of kindness and benevolence and compassion, that's integrity.
So let's talk a little bit about the hidden thing, because I think that, you know, like in some ways, you can kind of do this. It feels like we can lose something here, Tom, if we don't understand this, because you can maybe go, I'm going to live in a way where I go above and beyond. Like that, I want to do that. Like there might be a desire in you to do, in me and you and in our listeners, to kind of give in ways that will go above and beyond. And we can be motivated by kindness. But then our culture, there's something about our culture that is teaching us to kind of then tell everybody about it, because there is this kind of like draw, no matter who we are. I think that the cultural air we breathe is about, you know, there's looking good and self-promotion. And even if we don't mean to do that, we kind of easily end up doing that. But there's something here that's really key about the cryptic nature, the hidden nature of generosity, that's saying, I think, and I'm sure you'll expand on this in a minute, but that actually, if we can keep it in this hidden space, there's much more value. There's a longevity of value that happens.
There is a benefit
that we miss if we get it in the now.
Yes.
So talk about that.
Okay. So what Jesus said was, don't make a big thing. Not only don't make a big thing of your doing these generous things, giving alms, of compassion, response to need for the poor. Not only don't do that, make it cryptic. And this is this is where I would love to change the wording and translation of something. He says, because he says, when you do that, you give your alms, you are compassionate, you are giving, you're transferring something that's yours to somebody else, that act of integrity, that act of generosity. When you do that, don't even let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, which frankly isn't even realistic. Mm-hmm. But the point that's trying to be made is do it in such a way. And this is, I think, another quality of when it is generosity, that when transferring something from me to you isn't generosity. It's just a transfer for whatever that may be. And it might be a response to what's required, or it might be an expectation. Society expects this, or your community expects this. That's not generosity. It's just a transfer that is required or expected. His point is that don't let your left hand know what your right is doing, which is just making a point, because that's not actually a thing. It can't actually be done. Mm-hmm. But it's making a point so that your act of that, your almsgiving, your act of kindness, your generosity, and that sort of thing may be in, and it's translated secret, but I cringe with that, because the word can mean secret and clandestine and spy-like and that sort of thing. But the root word actually, and the real meaning of that, is it's something that is not known. It's something that is hidden. And when I was in college, I was the assistant head of the art department. And he had been a missionary in Japan for 22 years. He knew the language. And because he was an art professor, one of the topics of conversation we engaged in, on a number of points, was the idea of beauty. And art is about beauty. And he helped me understand that in the Japanese language, there are 4 different words fundamental to the idea of beauty. There's iki, jimi, hade, and shibui. And those are the kind of differences in beauty that is something that is an obvious beauty. This is, oh, wow, that's beautiful. Mm-hmm. And it's an obvious beauty. Or there's a beauty that is in like a festival and woohoo! Mm-hmm. And that's beautiful. Oh, this is so beautiful. Mm-hmm. There is a beauty, and it's shibui. And the concept is trying to convey what is an intrinsic yet hidden beauty. It's like the beauty that you see when you look at a single flower. It's so lovely. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And there is such a beauty, but it's not an obvious, ostentatious beauty. It's just beautiful. Mm-hmm. The grain in the wood. It's there, but you look and you see it.
So there's a hiddenness.
A hiddenness.
Beauty.
And cryptos, mm-hmm. New Testament, ancient Greek, cryptos, there can be beauty in what is not seen and what is not obvious. And what Jesus said was, practice your generosity in a way that is hidden, that nobody knows about. Not even your left hand doesn't even know your right hand was being generous. Responding to that out of kindness, compassion. Why? Because then the beauty in it is just that. In and of itself. That's the beauty in it. Not that anybody else knows. It's like the grain in the wood is intrinsic, inherent in the nature of that. And you can see the beauty in that. And the act of compassion, the transferring from me to you, which I can do because I'm in a thriving mentality, not a surviving mentality. And I can be generous. I can respond to your need, mm-hmm. not out of my own need or some need that I have to be recognized or identified. But the beauty in it is that it's hidden. It's cryptic.
I love that, Tom. It's so basically we get to, by giving generously, we get to create hidden beauty in the world.
We can see it. We're a part of it. That's my point, is that when we give generously, we become a part of that hidden beauty.
Yeah, right. Okay, so we are the beauty. So
yes!
something beautiful is being formed in us, and it's being seen, and we can see it in ourselves.
Yes. And that's a hidden beauty. And then going on, it says, because if you do it that way, your Father, this is community, this is relationship, will return that to you, will reward you for that. In other words, the benefit of giving generously is that what you have transferred to someone else out of kindness and out of your own sense of being secure and capable and empowered and influential, not control, influential, and you have a positive, healthy self-image and a positive, healthy self-esteem and a sober self-esteem, it comes back to you. So what you are giving comes back. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
To not participate in that, to not experience that. And remember, it's cryptic. It's a hidden beauty. And it's coming out of a spirit of kindness and generosity. That's integrity.
Yeah.
That's justice, oddly. Why? Because it's coming back to me. It's not selflessness. It's self-plusness. Do you see it?
I do, yeah. So it's not being all, I think that's the facade of like, I'm going to be so, that's the danger when we approach generosity from I'm going to be so selfless here, then in some ways that is kind of, we're walking into a bit of a trap with ourselves, because actually even that is a motivation to be this thing, to be this idea of being a person that can give so generous. I mean, there's got to come from somewhere. But if we acknowledge that, of course, we are, there's a self-plusness here. And of course, we want to engage with things that will benefit ourselves, right?
Yes.
But it starts by this generosity, which is going above and beyond, which is motivated by kindness, which isn't like blowing a trumpet about it or putting it on Instagram or Facebook or, touting our own our own horn.
Tooting our own horn, yes.
I think.
Or encouraging somebody else to toot it.
And this is so important, Tom, because I think the culture that we're in right now with social media and just like, I mean, it is rife with self-promotion. And I understand that to some level when you're running a podcast or when you're speaking or if you're writing a book. I get it. I get the fact that, you have to put yourself out there. But that culture can seep into these things that are like generosity, that basically steal generosity from you.
Because it becomes about that.
Yes.
And there isn't actually a transfer.
And then you miss out on becoming beautiful.
You miss out on being able to appreciate the beauty. You take beauty from your life.
Yeah.
So science shows that there are benefits to generosity. And remember what generosity is and what it isn't. But there are benefits to generosity. It reduces stress. Why? Because it is not responding out of that sensed threat to well-being and flight or fight. It's out of homeostasis. It's out of a sense of well-being. And in that, I want to transfer some of my well-being to you. And then your well-being is enhanced, which enhances my own well-being. And giving generously supports your physical health. Why? Because if you're in flight or fight mode, what's your physical health going to be like?
Not good.
No, it's not. And it gives you a sense of purpose and direction and integrity, all those mental health and character kind of things. Giving generously actually has been shown to give you a longer life. You live longer. Why? Because you're living. You're not surviving. You're thriving. And when you practice generosity, it improves the connection between you and others and improves relationships. Yeah. And it isn't just about us feeling closer to others because we're having that generous connection. It isn't just that we feel closer to them and they feel closer to us. We feel closer to ourselves.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like there's an authentic self that we're tapping into.
Yep. Mm-hmm. That we are expressing. And so it isn't just, generosity doesn't just connect me to you and you to me. It connects me to me and you to you. Mm-hmm. So give generously.
What an inspiring topic, Tom. Thanks for sharing all of those thoughts. There's lots there, and I personally love the selflessness. I'll have to think about that one. But yeah, well, we'll get together again for our next. Do you want to give us a heads up?
Yes, because the ABCs go from accept adversity, believe in beneficence, create contentment, defer to loving, energize empathy, forgive fearlessly, give generously, and then hope naturally comes next. Hope and healing for health.
Wow. And we need all of those three, right?
Thriving.
Okay, well, we'll catch you guys next time. Thank you so much for listening.
Yes.
And thanks for this conversation, Tom.
You've been listening to the Autonomic Healing Podcast.
Join us next time as we continue in our conversations with Tom. If you're interested in pursuing your own autonomic healing journey and want to find a practitioner, visit our website, innerworkings.org. See you at the next episode.